just get to the real deal now, the moment, whereby now I'm going to take you through camera anatomy. I'm sure you know what anatomy is if you've been able to get to a hospital. Now that is the same thing we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about key parts of a camera, such as the lens, the sensor, the viewfinder, shutter button, and mode dial. That is why we call it camera anatomy, because you cannot control or do photography without understanding what makes up a camera or getting to know the parts of a camera. That is why it is camera anatomy. Now, first of all, we'll get to talk about camera lenses and the different types of camera lenses. First of all, camera lenses. We'll start by talking about standard prime lens. Now, standard prime lens has a fixed focal length of we can say 35 mm, 50 and 85, and doesn't zoom. This is it is known for their sharpness and wide aperture. For example, close to, it opens to 1.4 to 1.8. We shall get to talk about what aperture is all about and what it entails, but let's talk about the lens. We started with a standard prime lens, which is it has a fixed focal length. That is what you have to understand first of all. When you get to talk about standard prime lens, they have fixed focal length, whereby now you the zooming ring, whereby now you control how you're going to take that picture. You're either going to zoom in or zoom out. Now your body works now at the zooming ring. But these type of lenses are known for their sharpness and wide aperture, making them great for low light photography and creating a shallow depth of field, blurry background. Now we're going to showcase pictures that have been taken by standard prime lens. They've just, as I've just stated, they're known for their sharpness. In terms of the picture, how the picture comes out, you can be able to see each single thing of the picture itself. Maybe you photographed someone, be able to see their eyes, be able to see their facial structure, the ears and everything. It has, it is very sharp. The other thing is used for creating a shallow depth of field. I'm sure you'll be able to see certain pictures that do have a blurry background, whereby now you cannot be able to see what is behind your subject because the background is blurry. Now, this kind of lenses are used for that job, to ensure that your image is sharp and also you have a shallow depth of field. Now, the next type of lens we are going to talk about is the zoom lens, whereby zoom lenses offer variable focal lengths, allowing you to zoom in and out. Now, the standard prime lens, the one that we started in, does not allow you to zoom in and out. But this one, the zoom lens, allow you to zoom in and out. And the common types include wide angle zooms, which are between 16 to 35 mm, and standard zooms that are between 24 to 70, and a telephoto zoom that is between 70 to 200. Now, they are versatile for various types of photography, including landscape, portraits, and wildlife. Now, the reason why these most photographers, if you just take a look around, you'll see that most photographers tend to use zoom lenses, simply because it gives them a wider range of taking pictures. They can be able to do landscape, they can be able to do portraits, they can be able to do wildlife, because these lenses can be able to zoom in and out. Now, the next type of lens is the wide angle lens, which have a shorter focal length, typical 25 mm or wider. They capture a broad field of view, making them ideal for landscapes, architecture, and creative perspectives. Now, this type of lenses, let's say that you want to take a picture of a building. These are the kind of lens you will go for. Wide angle lens can be able to take a wider space, a big space, be able to showcase whatever you want to showcase, and also gives you the creative perspectives, like how will I be able to take this picture. It gives you an open room of you getting to take the pictures. The next one is the telephoto lens. Now, the telephoto lens have a long focal length, often 100 mm or more, They bring distant subjects closer, making them suitable for wildlife, sports, and portrait photography. I'll give an example of sports. I'll start by football. In most cases, we can say that photojournalists or photographers who cover sporting events tend to go for these types of lens. So if you're going to get into sports photography, then this is the kind of lens you'll be using, simply because it helps you to get pictures closer without you interfering with the game. Remember, as a photographer, you may want to move in or out of the pitch to take the picture, but this type of lens makes you stand at a strategic point. Then you select your subject, bring your subject closer, then take the picture. This is a lens that is also used by those who do wildlife. Maybe you get to the park, you cannot be able to alight because maybe there's a lion, there's a rhino. So this lens helps you to get those wild animals closer to you, so that you can be able to get the picture that you wanted. Remember, when you're going to difficult, or we can say that hostile terrains, then this is the kind of lens you would want to use. Now, the next one is the fisheye lens. Fisheye lenses have an ultra-wide angle perspective with extreme distortion, creating a circular or hemispherical effect, often used for creative and artistic photography. I'll give an example of a picture that has been taken inside a stadium. You may take a look that that picture may be going like it's creating a semicurve, or it's going round, or trying to create an oval kind of shape. And I shall be able to also showcase that this is the lens that is used for that kind of photography. Now, the next one is a tilt-shift lens, whereby tilt-shift lenses allow for selective focus and perspective control. They are popular for buildings and product photography, creating the miniature effect and correcting perspective distortion. They're basically used when it comes to product photography. Maybe if you want to venture into photographing different products, then this is the kind of lens, tilt-shift lens, that you'll be taking a look at. Then we have another one called the pancake lens. Now, if maybe you're foodies or something, you may think that it's another type of food, but no. They have a shape that kind of looks like a pancake, and they're extremely compact and lightweight. They're just like the standard prime lenses, and they are ideal for travel and street photography. But you can either get a pancake lens, or you can either have a standard prime lens. Either way, they will still serve the purpose. And the next one is the macro lens. Macro lenses are designed for extreme close-up photography, capturing small subjects with intricate details. Now, I know that you may be confusing this with the telephoto lens, but this one is a little bit different, because now the telephoto is bringing the images closer without interrupting with whatever is happening, or if you're in a hostile environment, you'll be able to bring whatever you're taking closer. But now the macro lenses, they kind of magnify the pictures. Let's say you're going to take an insect, let's say a small insect. For example, you're going to take a butterfly, a picture of a butterfly, and you want it to be big on the screen so that people can be able to see it. Or some of the most, how can I put it, for lack of a better word, some of the most smallest insects in the world, then this is the kind of lens you'll be able to do, because they have a 1-to-1 magnification ratio, allowing subjects to appear life-sized on the image. Like they take pictures on life perspective. So maybe we can say that something like, for example, this glass is very small. So what this camera will be able, this lens rather, will be able to do, will be able to make this glass be a little bit big for someone to be able to interact or to understand what it is. The next one is specialty lenses. They are lens-by lenses, whereby they are known for creative effects like selective focus and unique blur. Now, this lens, you can be able to select an area you want to focus in. Now, you just tilt it. You say that on the left, I want the lens to focus this side, and this other side, I want it to be blur, or I want in front of the picture to be focused. Now, this is the kind of lens you're going to use. The next one the last one is adapted and vintage lenses. These are now lenses that were used way back. Lenses that we can say they're vintage. You know, you've seen vintage cars, you've seen vintage clothing, but now even cameras or lenses have their own vintage kind of lenses, and this is one of them. And now let's take a look at camera types. We've talked about lenses and we've gotten to the basis of that. Now let's take a look at the camera types that these lenses go to. There are various types of cameras, including the digital single lens reflex that is called the DSLR. Then we have mirrorless, we have compact smartphone cameras. Each has its own features and capabilities. Let's now start by talking of the digital single lens reflex camera. This is a camera that you're used to. It has interchangeable lenses. DSLR allow you to change lenses to suit different photography needs, such as wide angle, telephoto, and macro. Now, the types of lenses we've been able to talk about. We've seen that you may want to use the standard prime lens for, let's say, the depth of field. Or you may want to use the wide angle, the telephoto. Now, you need a camera that will be able to accept all those lenses. And now the DSLR camera is the one that has the capability to accept all the lenses we've talked about. It also has an optical viewfinder, which I also get in the video, show you the optical viewfinder, whereby DSLRs use a mirror and a prism system to provide a direct optical view through lens, which some photographers prefer. It also has a larger sensor, whereby typically larger sensors which can result in better image quality, especially in low light. And also they have a manual control, whereby now they give you an extensive manual control over settings like aperture, shutter, speed, and ISO, which I get to talk about that in a few. Now, the pros of using a DSLR. One of them is it is excellent image quality, wide range of lens options, precise manual control, well suited for various photography styles. This is a camera we've been seeing. I'm sure you've been able to see different brands of cameras or models. One of them being Canon, the other one being Nikon, the other one being Sony, the other one being Panasonic. If you take a look at all these cameras, they have one unique thing, that lenses can be able to be changed. And that is why they are called digital single lens reflex, DSLR. You can be able to change the lenses, you can be able to take different pictures in different places in a way that you want to suit you. The next one, because photography has been evolving, just like the way life and technology has been evolving, photography also has been evolving, and manufacturing of cameras has also been evolving. Now we have the digital single lens reflex, and now we have a modern version of that, now called the mirrorless camera. Now this one also has interchangeable lenses, just like the DSLRs, and it has a mirrorless cameras allow you to change lens for versatility the same way. But what they do not have the optical viewfinder that the DSLR has, and they use electronic viewfinders known as the EVFs, or the LCD screen for composing shots, offering real-time previews of exposure setting. Now that is the difference now between the DSLR and the mirrorless camera, because one has an optical viewfinder where you can be able to just check through the viewfinder to see the type of photo you're taking. The other one doesn't have, so you have to use the LCD screen for composing shots, and they do offer real-time previews of exposure setting. Now they are also compact and lightweight, mirrorless cameras are generally more portable than the DSLRs. So it means that you can be able to carry them for maybe you're working for 12 hours. So using a mirrorless camera, you'll be able to literally do your work comfortably because they are not hard to carry, and also they have excellent video capabilities. So maybe you want to venture into photography and videography also. So you can also be, this is one of the cameras you can also go into the market and take a look at. They are also compact. The pros is that are compact and portable, interchangeable lenses, excellent image quality, and precise manual control. Now let's talk about the exposure triangle. Remember, photography revolves around controlling 3 essential settings for exposure. Remember, taking a picture, it all surrounds exposure. You have to balance your light well for you to take a picture. Now the camera has given you options by coming up with different sets of settings that can help you take beautiful pictures in different exposure settings. Now, this represents, one of them is the ISO, which represents the sensitivity of the camera's sensors to light. Low ISO values, e.g. from 100, are used in well-lit situations, while higher values such as 800 or more are used in low light but can introduce noise. Now, what ISO literally means is that the camera itself is being able to power the picture electronically or add light or exposure to the picture electronically, which means that this is not natural lighting. It means that the camera is using its own electronic lighting to power up the image. Now the lowest ISO stands at 100. It's best when you're shooting, we can say outside or where there is natural lighting. And the highest, while a higher value is, for example, 800 and above. We have cameras you'll get that the ISO gets to 25,000. So when you use a higher ISO, clearly means that where you've gotten to take your own picture, that room is not well lit. So you're asking the camera to assist you add some exposure to the photo so that you can be able to get a well lit photo. But not this. When you use a higher ISO, your picture gets noisy or it gets, we can say, distorted. When you look at the picture, the clarity will not be as that of one who has used ISO at 100. Now, the next one is aperture. And I'm sure if you're getting into this, you've been able to hear people say that talk about f-stops. Aperture refers to the size of the lens opening. Aperture blades it's a blade that controls the amount of light entering the camera. We have the small aperture. For example, that is a f16 and f22. Provides a narrow aperture opening, allowing less light to enter. This results in a larger depth of field and more focus, but requires longer shutter speeds or higher ISO in low light. Now, small aperture, what it basically means. Let's now use an example of a curtain. I like using a curtain where you are. Or we can use a door where you are. Now, an aperture is basically an opening, just like a door that opens through the lens to let in light. Now, when you have a small aperture, it means that you've minimized the opening. So if it's a curtain, you've just opened the curtain, let's say, to 3/4. You've not opened the whole curtain. So what that basically means, the light that gets into the camera, it's low. Now, this is where now we've talked about ISO. You'll get to also now go and run to ISO and see if the ISO can be able to help you lit up the image. But remember, the good thing about a small aperture, it gives you a sharper image. So when you use a higher shutter, you get a sharper image. Then we have the next one, which is a large aperture. That is f-stops 2.8 and f-stops 1.8. There are others. If you're using a standard prime lens, they go up to 1.4. This is just basically the opening of the lens, which creates a wide aperture opening. So if it's the window, you had opened that curtain to 3/4. Now at this time, you're opening the whole window to let in light into the camera. Now, this results in a shallow depth of field whereby you get blurry background and is useful for portraits or isolating subjects from the background. You've been able to see pictures that have blurry backgrounds. Now, this is the aperture that is being used. That is the large aperture from 2.8 to 1.8 to 1.4 based on the kind of lens you're using. And you have to adjust the aperture to control the depth of field and achieve the desired background blur or sharpness. Remember the moment you were talking about the exposure, how to balance the exposure when it comes to taking pictures. You as a photographer, remember we've said that lighting is very key when it comes to taking pictures. So we've talked about ISO, which is now electronic powering of the picture by the camera itself. You now talked about aperture, which is now an opening that allows light into the camera. Now, still on the exposure triangle, we'll take a look at shutter speed. Some of the things that the settings you'll need to have a better picture. Now, the shutter speed controls the duration of time that the camera sensor is exposed to light. Now, first of all, we have a number of shutter sensors. One of them is a fast shutter speed that goes to 1 to 1,000 seconds. Another one is 1 to 500 seconds. This one freezes fast moving subjects and reduces the risk of motion blur. This one is used, let's say, in sports. We can say mostly in basketball and also in football. Let's say that a goalkeeper is going to get the ball. So it needs a very fast shutter to be able to get that moment before it happens. The same is also used in basketball, whereby now you can say that a basketball player wants to score. So he goes up. So the shutter freezes that moment of the basketball player going up and freezing the moment, because it's something that is in motion and it is very fast. It needs a very fast shutter for you to be able to capture such an image. Then we have the moderate shutter speed, that is 1 to 250 seconds and 1 to 125 seconds. It's a good choice for general photography where you want to balance sharpness and motion. Now, as a photographer, if you will not be measuring in, let's say, the sports one, then this is the shutter you'll be using most of the time as a photographer, because it is the moderate and the standard shutter of each and every photographer in the world, simply because it will help you balance sharpness and motion at the same time, whereby you won't want to freeze a moment very fast and also you won't want to blur a moment very fast. Now we have the last one is the slow shutter speed, that is goes to 1 to 30 seconds. In fact, it starts from 1 to 50 seconds going down to 1 to 30 seconds to 1 second. It is a slow shutter speed, which clearly means that the shutter itself, the shutter is basically the curtain. Whenever you take a picture, there's that sound that comes from the camera. Now, where that sound is coming from is from the shutter itself, whereby now the shutter tries to open up to get light in. So in a fast shutter, it opens fast, gets the light in very fast. A moderate shutter just opens up in a moderate way, gets light in, you take your picture. And the slow shutter, because the number has gone low, what it does, it takes time, it opens up and takes time to close, which basically means it will allow a lot of light to get in and take a picture. It creates motion blur. It's used for creative effects e.g. light rails, long exposure photography, or in low light conditions. I'll give an example of Safari Rally, whereby you've been able to see those pictures that a picture has been taken of a car. Then you see around the car there is dust that coming around it from left, right, and center and back. Now, the shutter that was used there was a slow shutter speed. You've also been able to see, let's say, in a highway, a super highway, not a normal highway, but a super highway, like in Nairobi, the expressway. You can be able to use this slow shutter speed to get those moving vehicles. Then you'll see that at the back of each vehicle, you'll be able to see the red lights in a straight line. You'll see that these red lights are going together while following the car. It means that the shutter was able to capture that moment. While the car was in motion, it captured everything, including the lights. So it takes the motion together with the car. So that's why you'll be able to see these pictures. A car is moving very fast, then the lights are following the car. You can be able to see that a car is moving very fast, then there's some motion behind the car, showing that this car was moving from left to right. So that is what happens in terms of shutter speed. We've been talking about the exposure triangle. Remember, photography is about lighting. You have to balance your light well. I'll just repeat it. You have to get your aperture right, which is the opening of the lens to get the light in for the picture to be taken. Then we have the shutter speed, which also has to be gotten right and based on the type of photos you're taking. Remember, we have three. We have the fast shutter, the moderate shutter for moderate shooting, and the slow shutter speed. And we have the ISO, which is the electronical way of the camera lighting up your photo. But the ISO is very dangerous. When you're using it, you are supposed not to go high, because high starts from around 800 and low is at 100. So when you go high, there are cameras that get to 25,000. It means that your picture will have noise and it will be distorted. It won't be a good picture. Now, let's take a look at exposure metering. We've talked about exposure triangle that consists of the aperture, ISO, and the shutter speed. Next time to talk about metering modes. One of them is evaluative, center-weighted, spot, to measure light and calculate the correct exposure. Now, this time is about now measuring light and getting the correct exposure. Now, it is also known as, we start by taking a look at evaluative metering, which is also known as matrix metering on Nikon, but on Canon, it's evaluative metering. It is a sophisticated and advanced metering mode used in many modern digital cameras to determine the appropriate exposure settings for given scenes. The metering mode is designed to provide accurate and reliable exposure in a wide range of shooting situations. So let's say that you're shooting in a room. This is the kind of metering you will use, simply because it is designed to provide accurate and reliable exposure in such areas. The next one is center-weighted metering. This metering mode provides more emphasis on the exposure value, reading from the central portion of the frame while taking into account the surrounding areas to a lesser extent. Then maybe let's take a look at the picture. It focuses on the center, so it is center weighted to the picture itself, then takes the surrounding of the picture itself. It is often used when you want to prioritize the exposure of the main subject in the center of the image while considering the overall scene. Now, the next one is a spot metering. Is a metering mode available in many digital cameras, including the digital single lens reflex and mirrorless cameras. Unlike evaluative or center weighted metering, spot metering provides a highly focused and precise exposure reading for a small area, often represented by a small circle or square at the center of the frame. This metering mode is useful when you want to meter for a specific point of subjects within the scene, regardless of the overall lighting conditions. It's good when it comes to, let's say that you're taking portraits or headshots, or you've gone somewhere to take pictures. Let's say most of the time you want the background to be more blurry. Now, this is the kind of mode you use because you want the image to be sharp. So you select a spot that you want light to focus mainly on, and also the sharpness of the picture. Now, let's also now talk about focus and depth of field. Now, understanding how to focus on your subject and control depth of field is crucial. You can use autofocus or manual focus to achieve sharpness, and adjusting the aperture affects the depth of field. Remember, we talked about aperture. Now, focus is basically making sure that people can be able to see the details in your picture. That whoever gets to see the picture will get to see what's in the picture. And focus most of the time, make sure that this is where now people get to judge you. How clear is your picture? So you have to understand how you'll be able to get a sharp focus. We've been able to talk about, you can be able to use the prime lenses, whereby they can be able to give you a sharp focus because they open the aperture up to 1.4. You can also be able to take the aperture to be a little big, whereby you go up and you get to f22. That will be able to help you get a sharp focus. Now let's talk about white balance. White balance helps correct the color temperatures of your photos under different lighting conditions. Common settings include daylight, cloudy, tungsten, and fluorescent.